Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, episode 27 for June 8th, 2007. Touch the Surface. Time to talk about the wacky world of Windows with our Windows Whackmeister. No, that's not a good name. Mr. Paul Thurrott. Hey, Paul.
I'm doing the intro next week.
He's the Whackmeister. What?
A Whackmeister?
The Whackmeister. Yeah, we should work on that. I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay.
Sometimes, these are ad-libbed, and sometimes there's more ad than lib.
They're not all home runs, but
not all home runs.
We always swing for the fence.
Exactly. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I was in your neck of the woods just a few days ago. That's why we didn't have a show last week. I was in Connecticut for my college reunion.
I heard your car speeding by.
Hey, there's Dedham. That's where Thurrott lives. See ya. I tossed out. I have to say, I tossed out an Narragansett beer can as I went by.
Yeah. Well, no, see, you wouldn't stand out in any way by doing that.
I guess not. I like the Mass Turnpike, though. I told my daughter, I said, we're on the Mass Turnpike. The logo is a pilgrim's hat. And then for some reason, with an arrow through it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
that's politically correct.
Well, and then they've changed it. They took the arrow out.
Oh, did they?
There's one with just a pilgrim hat. So I wasn't hallucinating.
It's the great PC jihad is sweeping through Massachusetts. My town's high school mascot is the Marauder. And, of course, they're getting rid of that because it's sort of an Indian theme thing. So I recommended the artichoke as a kind of a peaceful.
Here in Santa Cruz, it's the banana slug.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
That'll really get your team going.
That scares the opponents.
Yeah. Go, slugs! I'll be with you in a moment. The Marauder. Well, see, no, so okay. So there was an arrow through that hat at one time.
Oh, yeah.
Abby thought I was loony because she said, "No, Dad, look, see." And it was just a pilgrim hat, and I was so bummed. All right. I am vindicated. That's I think that's the best logo ever. I love that logo. And it was a little. We had some thunderstorms, but the sun came out, a little muggy, but still nice. And then it poured rain on Monday. I was showing her Harvard because I think she should see Harvard, and it was raining cats and dogs.
Harvard. What is it?
Where's Harvard?
Oh, I see.
Harvard. So let's talk about while we were gone, Microsoft did an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. They released a Pong table, which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's something we all need. It's the Surface.
That's what I wrote in my news article. I said there hasn't been a computerized table this exciting since Atari put Pac-Man on a table.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like a Pac-Man table. It's kind of coffee table height, but it's one big difference. It's touch.
Right.
So I haven't seen much about it. Tell us about the Surface.
Yeah, I've been amazed how much interest I've gotten in this product from readers and listeners and so forth. And
Microsoft doesn't do cool, exciting things like Apple does. So everybody says, "Oh, neat! There's something cool and exciting from Microsoft, something innovative."
Except that should be your clue that this is not going to be that exciting. Because it is coming from Microsoft. I mean, I think we all understand that the future is going to be computerized everything, that our walls will light up with screens and we'll touch them and move things around in real time, like in that Minority Report movie and so forth.
Yeah, can't wait.
It's going to happen. But, Microsoft Surface 1.0, I don't think we're going to be doing too much of that stuff. I mean,
if you go to the website, Microsoft.com/Surface, you'll get a little flash video. There's a new way to live in the digital world. A new way that feels familiar to us. A new way that acts like us. A new way that isn't new at all. This is the worst copy. Microsoft Surface.
Computers for a long time have used this sort of desktop metaphor, and it's been abstracted so much that we're sort of unclear that that's even what it was. It was supposed to represent a desk. So now they're bringing the computer to the desk itself. And actually, I guess I'd say making an old-fashioned computer with a keyboard and mouse act like a desk might be kind of silly, actually.
Well, it's going to be expensive for one thing. I mean, that's a big
but
screen.
I mean, but making things computerized actually makes some sense, right? So obviously, the first gen is not going to be going home in any way. I mean, it's going to be for hotels, restaurants, entertainment places, and so forth. So I mean, you're going to see things like little slot machines and all that kind of stuff first. So I don't look like it's going to come out this Christmas and we're all going to have computerized tables.
They've been working on, at least according to Microsoft, they've been working on it since 2001, and the first prototype was 2003.
Hey, they've been working on Vista since 2001 too.
That's true. That's not saying much.
Let's not get too excited about that.
There was a very famous demo.
Mm-hmm.
You saw it, I'm sure, from the TED conference, Technology Entertainment Design, of this. But the guys from Carnegie Mellon, where were they from? I can't remember. But it was of this great touch screen thing, and you were squeezing and pinching and throwing Minority Report style. And really, that's the first time I'd seen anything quite like that. And now both Apple with its iPhone and Microsoft with its Surface have basically done the same thing. I think one of the reasons they're emphasizing the history of this is to avoid the accusation that they saw this video and said, oh, we could do that.
Well, and I would say that, Microsoft announcing this when they did is in some ways tied to the iPhone as well, because, Apple has all of these, touch screen things going on and the squeezing and all that stuff. And this table does that stuff. And I think that if they had announced it even 3 months later, people would have said, oh, you guys, this is an iPhone with legs.
A giant iPhone.
Yeah.
A 400-pound iPhone.
Yeah. Typical Microsoft product.
But it may to give Microsoft some credit, it may just be this is an idea whose time has come, and that's often happens where you see these ideas appear in many places at once.
This is coming. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I have to laugh. They have these media demonstrations where they show people dragging around music and pictures and all that kind of stuff, and that's all really cute. But they showed stuff like that for Vista, and it never came. And I just think we need to be realistic about this. No doubt that this sort of surface computing thing is the future, but so is tablet PC, right? I mean,
just not our future, just not right now.
It's not the future in the next 10 seconds. I mean, it's years down the road.
A lot of people have bought them, but as you say, it's institutional. It's the Marriotts of the world. So really, what we're going to see is it's going to be a $10,000 brochure, a hotel brochure, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hotels already and casinos and other places like that are already spending thousands of dollars on just displays that they can hang on the wall.
Plasmas,
yeah. Sometimes they just show pretty pictures just so you feel calm when you're waiting in line.
Right.
So obviously that's going to be the first use for that. So I'll get excited about this when we can play. I don't want to say Pac-Man, like a card game, or actually enjoy digital media that way. Move things around on the table and have it play through my stereo. That's interesting. I can't wait for that. It needs to cost a lot less than $10,000.
Right.
We'll see.
Is it running Vista?
Actually, I don't know.
Who knows what it's running?
I almost said I hope not, but actually, I don't know. I should say that.
Well, it ain't Windows CE. This was announced.
My table's rebooting. I mean, the jokes come so readily.
Yes, they do. In fact, Vegas is used to that. How many times have you seen pictures snapped of big Vegas signs with the blue screen of death on them?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody lift up their cups. I have to reboot the table. I don't know. I can't get excited.
This was announced at the D conference, Walt Mossberg and the Wall Street Journal's big everything digital conference, which is becoming really an event.
I know, it really is. That's an amazing coup for those guys.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is, because I
don't know what it is. Why would anyone want to go to a Wall Street Journal technology conference?
Well, and I also look at all the power Walt Mossberg wields. I mean, he really now is the most powerful guy in tech media. And I've often wondered why. And Dvorak said, well, it's very simple. These companies like Apple and Microsoft woo Walt and the Wall Street Journal because of who reads Walt and the Wall Street Journal. They want Wall Street to like and be excited about the stock. It's all about the stock.
Yeah,
which makes sense. And it's all about finance and investment. So that makes sense. Anyway, the big coup, and nobody's ever done this before. I wonder if they'll ever do it again. Was Walt got Steve Jobs and Bill Gates together on the same stage.
Yes. It was the death match for the ages.
Cage match. Yeah. And they didn't pull out the knives, really, did they?
No, they didn't. I mean, God, the build-up to this was so classic, especially on the Mac side. I mean, I think people expect a certain persona out of Steve Jobs because they see him at these trade shows when he's in command.
Right.
And I thought it was really interesting how different he was, A, when confronted with things, and B, when there was someone else there with him, who's obviously been perhaps even more successful in some ways from a sheer money-making perspective.
Well, it's funny because they said at the end, what's one thing you admire about the other guy? Yeah. And Gates said, which I thought, very interestingly, I wish I had Steve Jobs' taste.
Yes.
And this is something Jobs has always said about Bill, is that, he lacks taste. No taste. He said it very famously, in fact.
Right about Windows on the Revenge of the Nerds, or
the Triumph of the Nerds.
Triumph of the Nerds, yeah.
I make the same mistake. It's not the movie; it's the. Is
it the one with the football players, or the one with Robert X. Cringely? I always forget.
I can never remember, but absolutely, taste, and I thought that was great. And I was waiting when they asked Jobs the same thing. What's one thing you admire about Bill Gates? To say his fat wallet.
Exactly.
But he didn't say that. I mean, once you've got 30, 40 billion, it's all the same.
It's right. It's just a matter of degree at that.
What did he say about Microsoft and Bill? What did he admire about him? His
focus,
his
contrary to what everyone expected, they were very nice to each other.
Yes.
Almost the entire time. There were a couple very mild jabs, but they were good-humored in nature and were well received on both sides, I thought. And they had some good laughs and all that, which I thought was nice. I mean, ultimately, it turned into kind of a nice, homey, sitting on the porch kind of reflection moment. And I don't know that we expected that, but I thought it was nice. But what Jobs said about Bill's, biggest, achievement, or the thing he liked most about Microsoft, perhaps, was that,
Sorry.
Was that a bowling alley? What was that?
Yeah, never mind. Pretend that didn't happen.
He's playing fantasy role-playing games.
I am so sick of websites that make noise. And I was a little nervous when I went to the Surface site. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to have any audio on it. But as I often, and this, okay, so now I'm busted. I do surf while we're talking. I look up the next story and so forth.
I expect you to do that.
I looked up some site, and boy, I got noise. Anyway, forget that. I said
what he said was, Bill Gates recognized that software could be an industry, and he made that big bet on software. That Microsoft was the software company.
Brilliant.
And on the flip side, I thought this was fascinating. He talked about how Apple, in fact, was a software company as well, and that yes, they make hardware, but the iPod essentially is software that sits on a device, that sits on your PC, that sits up in the cloud. The Mac is the software that runs on the machine. Yes, it's a beautiful machine, but it's really software. The iPhone is really the software. What will make that thing successful or not will be the software.
It's a little revisionist for him to be saying that, because all of these are tied to hardware, which is where Apple makes its money.
But I think it was very calculated, because I think it shows a little bit of insight into where they're heading.
Yes.
And how they think about themselves going forward. And especially as you move the computers over the Intel side, the underlying hardware is not that differentiated anymore.
Well, it's not just where they're heading, it's where the whole world is heading. And we're going to talk about that a little later. But
absolutely.
Software really is what it's. I mean, it's almost now a trite insight. Of course it's software. You don't really care what processor your iPod is running. That's irrelevant.
Exactly. Exactly. But what you care about is that interface, that thing that you are interacting with, and that is software.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a hardware component to it, but the design that Apple does, it goes obviously back and forth between the hardware and the software, but it is at its core software. It's very interesting. So the other thing, I think, I'll just throw this out because I thought this was fascinating. They talk back to when Apple was failing about a decade ago. And Steve Jobs came back on board. He eventually ousted Gil Amelio. And he had this great quote from Gil Amelio where he said that Amelio, who was a previous CEO of Apple, said that Apple was like a ship that had a hole in the bottom and water's pouring in. And his job was to point the ship in the right direction. I just thought, what a beautiful quote.
That kind of sums it up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So obviously, Jobs has righted the ship and
plugged the holes. By the way,
plugged the hole and worried about the direction after the hole was plugged in.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually very apt. That's exactly what was going wrong. One of the things that Bill has always been sensitive about is these Apple ads. They take pot shots at the PC. They talked a little bit about that too, didn't they?
They did, yeah. The PC guy and Gates obviously sort of alluded to the fact that this guy was like the punching bag, and maybe a lot of people have said based even on his appearance. And Jobs said, that everyone likes the PC guy. I mean, he has to be likable for this to work. And I think that was the closest they ever came to disagreeing on anything, but it was done again in a good humored way. And actually, I think ultimately I agree with Jobs on this one. I think that the PC guy is what makes this work, and that obviously it's a marketing thing. But when you put you have this kind of likable loser, who's forced to endure all of this embarrassment because he has to run Windows. It's funny. I mean, how could that not be funny?
You have to feel sorry for him.
Yeah, I love that guy. I mean, it's just classic. So.
Well, and and some people have said this is a flaw in the advertising. The Mac guy is so darn snarky. Nobody likes the Mac guy.
Right. He's almost like a little Steve Jobs prototype, right?
Yeah, you want to punch him in the nose.
Yeah, I don't feel that strongly about it. I mean, I think that he's very representative of the Mac. I don't want to say the user base because obviously Mac users are actually all over the place. But the way that people perceive the
prototypical,
Mac, young and hip and more concerned with the creative stuff and
the Mac
not
cult
necessarily
members.
About yeah.
Well, and I think I've heard this observed a number of times. Really, Steve and Bill have more in common than they have differences.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pioneers.
They should get together more often.
Yeah.
This could really erase a lot of misunderstandings.
I agree.
This was the nice kind of thing, and we had talked at one time about having various sort of debates, on a podcast with like Mac guys and Linux guys and everything. And I think that is the type of thing that would come out of that. But I think that kind of conversation sometimes can be very healthy. And again, I think on the Mac side especially, there was some expectations that Steve was going to get up there and just smack Bill around. And when they saw how deferential and nice he was to Gates, I think that was an interesting moment for a lot of people. So I think more of that would be very helpful.
Why shouldn't they like each other? I mean,
exactly.
They came up together,
Sure.
Let's see. Moving on. Why are you having trouble with iTunes? You tell me you're having some issues here on your Vista.
Right. So
because the last time we talked, you said it was all working.
It was, and then I started noticing that some of my podcasts were getting deleted. And I noticed this when I was syncing with the iPod because it would tell me there was a problem. And you could look at the dialogue and it said, this episode of this podcast cannot be found. Would you like to look for it now? And I thought that was kind of odd. And I couldn't really figure out what was going on. And then last week, Apple came out with the iTunes Plus. And so I wanted to download some albums that were in this new format so I could, play with it and test it and so forth. And the first album that I downloaded, I went back to iTunes later in the day, and 3 of the songs were missing.
Oh,
so when it was a few podcasts, I was a little bit concerned. When it became something that I purchased, I became very concerned. I wrote Apple support, and I told them what happened. They actually allowed me to download the entire album again, so I was able to do that. Just yesterday, I downloaded 2 more albums, and as I did it, I decided I would back these things up immediately. So as soon as the albums were downloaded, I went into the folder. You can right-click on a song, say Show in Windows Explorer, Show in Finder if you're on a Mac. It will open the folder where the files are. So let's say one of the albums had 11 songs. There were only 9 files in the folder, so 2 were missing. But they would play in iTunes. So what I discovered was that these folders, these files were in a temporary folder. They were called download.m4p, whatever the extension is. And they were just in weird places. So I could pull them into the same folder and back them up. And I had to do that for both albums. One was missing 2, the other was missing 4 songs.
So it's like an incomplete download or something.
Well, yeah, but what happens is when you, and I tested this, you shut off iTunes, reload it, those temporary folders disappear and the files are gone. And that's what happened. So now I know what happened. I don't know why it happened. I'm not sure, I've backed up my music, so I have them. I haven't lost anything again, but I don't,
So the fix is not to quit iTunes.
The fix is to back these things up and make sure you have all of them before you quit iTunes. And then, so anyway, I guess what I'm curious. I'm going to mention this in Short Takes tomorrow, hopefully, in the newsletter. But I'd like, if anybody has this issue, it's on Windows Vista. I don't know if that's relevant. I don't know if it's just my system. I have searched for this, but I'm just curious if anyone has had this problem, and if they have any ideas about.
Do you have a feedback place people could go? I mean, do you want email, or do you have somewhere on the Win Super site?
Yeah, email would be fine.
Okay,
email would be fine.
And your email is
right. It's my last name, which I'll spell at gmail.com. So it's Thurrott, THURROTT at gmail.com. And I'm just curious if anyone has this issue. So I've moved all my music, all my videos and movies and so forth over to Vista from the Mac. And now I'm having this weird problem.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little disconcerting.
Yeah.
To lose things like that. So
it is weird. Although I think if it were a widespread problem, we'd hear about it.
I would think so, yeah. And again, I'm not a complete idiot. I did look for this online, not completely. I'm working on that. But, I don't really see anything that's relevant to what I've seen, so I don't know.
Well, since you've admitted to being a complete idiot, I'm sorry. Others certainly feel that from time to time, and I have to leap to your defense. Because you're not. In fact, you're one of the reasons I'm thrilled to do this with you is you're very credible and you're honest and you talk about your real opinion. And often you're very positive about Macs, which gets all your Windows fans upset. And then when you say something negative or positive about Windows, all the Mac people come at you as if you're some sort of bigot, which you're not.
Right.
Most recently, this controversy over 1 million Zunes.
I know. I love that this is my controversy.
It isn't your controversy, and I pointed this out. Somebody came up on, I think on MacBreak Weekly, that the AP reported this. It was reported everywhere as 1 million Zunes sold, and I'm sure that's what you saw. Is the news story?
Well, what I read was the San Francisco Chronicle news story.
Right.
That said that quoted Robbie Bach, who is a vice president of some caliber at Microsoft. He's in charge of all of their entertainment stuff, I believe, at least certainly in charge of the Zune. And he said, or was quoted, I should say, in the Chronicle article as saying, "We have sold 1 million Zunes." So I blogged this. I didn't write a news story about it. I blogged it on my personal blog, and I said, hey, everybody, myself included, is very quick to make fun of this guy, or rather of the Zune. But I said, they said that they wanted to sell 1 million of these by the end of June. They've apparently done it by the end of May. That's a month early. Good for them. I mean, maybe it's not a complete, car crash like I've been saying. At least give them credit for that.
Well, you don't dare give credit to Microsoft for anything.
Yeah, right. So it turns out that he did not say that they had sold 1 million Zunes. There's a podcast of the interview that the Chronicle had with him. Now, it's still not clear to me.
The Chronicle misquoted him, it sounds like.
I think so. But as I noted in my follow-up post, it's not actually clear if that quote that was in the newspaper article was from a different time or a different conversation. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I don't think it matters, but I guess if you listen to the podcast, no, not I guess. I went back and listened to it after I got some email about it. He actually says, we're on track to sell 1 million Zunes by the end of June, as we said we would do. So they have not sold 1 million Zunes. They've sold something like 850 or 900,000 Zunes or whatever it is. Who knows? They're just on track. They haven't done it ahead of time, but they still feel like they're going to make it.
Well, and the other thing to point out is that Microsoft traditionally reports numbers of Zunes sold into the channel, not to end users.
Hey, whatever.
So who knows how many they've sold to real people?
Right.
I mean,
but you know what? Okay, but that's how they measure those things.
Right.
To me, whatever. I mean, that's. All I did was take a quote that someone published in a pretty, credible newspaper, and I quoted it, and I said, "That's interesting. Good for them."
Yeah, but it's a lot easier to take pot shots at you than the San Francisco Chronicle, or maybe a lot more fun.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. So,
so just to clear, you corrected it. The mistake was the Chronicles.
Oh no, I didn't correct it.
There wasn't anything to correct. I
didn't. Listen. As I wrote, I made a follow-up post, and I said
followed up. All right.
Apparently the San Francisco Chronicle misquoted him.
Right.
Then I said, apparently someone also listened to the actual podcast with this guy and discovered the discrepancy. Now, I didn't listen to it because I've heard this guy talk before, and I don't like listening to him talk. He's physically painful to listen to, and you should listen to it if you want to understand what I'm saying. He has a really great. He talks like he's got marbles in his mouth. He's hard to listen to.
Okay.
But I did get a couple of Mac guys asking me, or demanding me, as I wrote, to retract my blog post about this, as if I had not done some sort of journalistic due diligence, for what is actually just a blog posting. So, okay, so I mentioned this, whatever. I mean, to me, this is a complete non-event.
Okay,
and maybe I'm missing the point.
No, it is a non-event, and I think that's just an example of people taking, for some reason, really, you're a lightning rod for this kind of.
And I don't know why. I really don't know why. I mean, I'm not sort of smirking over here saying, "Oh, I don't know why," and rubbing my hands together because I really do know why. I mean, I really don't know.
That's more like Dvorak.
Yeah, okay. I really am not seeking. I'm not.
You don't want this kind of publicity.
I don't have the deer in the Far Side cartoon that has the bum of a birthmark. He's got like a target on his chest.
Bad.
I'm not interested in that.
So let's talk then about the news story, because they actually sold more Zunes, even if you're conservative, than Apple did in the same period. The original iPod.
Yeah, and by the way, one of my big pet peeves in life and in the tech industry part of my life as well is the sort of rewriting of history that goes on. And there is absolutely no doubt that the iPod is an amazing smash success story. It is, the Walkman of this generation. It's astonishing. However, in the first 2 years that thing was in the market, it didn't go anywhere,
right.
and people don't seem to remember that. And
right.
you can sort of excuse that away. It was only available in the Mac, which it was. There was only one model, which was expensive for the day, which it was. The market was smaller, I guess, which it was. Okay, that's all very true. But the truth is also that that thing didn't really take off till A, they brought it to Windows, and B, they introduced the iTunes Music Store.
Right.
And those were the two catalysts. They happened, I believe, simultaneously or near simultaneously. And after that point, the iPod took off.
Do you think the Zune's a success? I'm surprised, frankly, to hear. I'm really shocked to hear it sold that many units, because I don't see anybody with one.
Right. I would. Well, I don't know. So I would say it like this. Compared to the sales of the iPod, it's not doing anything. It's Apple
sold 25 million iPods
in that time period. Right. There you go. So they're outselling Zune 25-1. Now, I don't know how many of the 30 gig version of the iPod that they sold, but several million at least, maybe 10 million. I mean, who knows? So they're outselling the Zune dramatically. However, as David Carlton told me, and might have told us in our conversation, Microsoft has entered a market in which it had no product, and it is now the number 2 player. I mean, just by entering the market, they're outselling every other device that isn't an iPod. In that sense, in some ways, it's successful. But I would also point out, with my lack of innovation in the Linux space theme, that by copying Apple's, the way that they do things with the iPod and not going through their traditional sales strategy or not inventing something new, they're not being particularly innovative either. So, I mean, riding the back of the iPod and achieving 1/25th of the sales, I can't really call that successful either.
Right.
So I guess we'll see. They need more models. They need, better. If they could buy songs wirelessly over this thing, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, let's see what they do with it. I mean, it's a version 1.0 product. Let's see what 2.0 looks like. The iPod wasn't very compelling when it was 5 gigabytes. I mean, I have one, but I still have that one. But I think it takes a little while. Yeah, it takes a little while to catch on and to figure out what you're going to do with it, and to do something new and different.
I think that the original iPod was really interesting. It was probably more interesting to people who had never seen like a Creative Nomad, which was like a CD player size device with a hard drive and a very similar menu system, et cetera. They only sold like 8 of them, so I guess who cares at this point? But I thought I was excited by the original iPod, and I could see the small form factor and
there was something sexy about it, I think.
Yeah, that mechanical click wheel they had at the time was really neat. Yeah. You could tell it was going to go somewhere.
Yeah. Something we've both been saying, where's it going and why isn't it going farther and faster, is Windows Live. I think we're both fans of Windows Live.
Yeah.
Now they're using it for gaming now too. So
there's 2 sides to this, right? There's the games, and then there's the stuff that's still on Windows. So there's been some news in that area, this past couple of weeks. I've spent an amazing amount of time over the past 2 days playing Halo 2.
Congratulations. You beat the game, I hear.
I did beat the game again, but the only reason that's interesting is because this time it's on Windows, and it's the first, or one of the first, I should say, Windows games that is locked into that live system. So it's the same online service that you access on the Xbox that they call Xbox Live. On the Windows side, they call it Games for Windows Live. Mm-hmm. You might think of the overall service itself just as live, whatever. So you can actually play Halo 2 on Windows with an Xbox controller and get achievements like you do in an Xbox game. And this thing coughs up achievements like a Pez dispenser. It's hilarious.
It's a little harder on the Xbox.
Yeah, and the original Xbox version was not, predated the 360, so it doesn't have any achievements.
So if in general Xbox the 360 games, you don't get. I mean, you have all these achievements. I have like 2 achievements.
Yeah, some of them are very hard, and some are easier. But I have never seen a game cough up achievements like this. It's laughter inducing.
I think that's smart.
I got I got something like 7 achievements one day, and then my son came in and he's dying to play this thing online, and I said, okay, here, get on, go ahead. He gets online and in 2 games, it gets 8 achievements, and it's for everything. You stuck someone with a grenade, you double kill.
Achievement.
It's like bing, bing, bing. It's like a pinball machine.
Well, why not? Achievements are cheap and easy. Are you saying it's devaluing the achievement economy?
Well, for people who are what I would call achievement whores, Halo 2 is like the greatest thing that's ever happened.
I've got achievement. Yeah, I need it because I'll tell you what, I ain't got no achievements. I am very low, and people laugh.
I would recommend this would be a good one. On the flip side, I find this really amazing. This was true of the original Halo, which also came out on the PC years ago. Halo 2 has huge hardware requirements, and I have a pretty high-end PC, except for the video card. I'd say the video card is kind of a mainstream, mid-level, 3D graphics card. Everything else is pretty high-end. I've got 4 gigs of RAM in the thing. I have, huge screen and really fast hard drive, etc. But man, I have to really tone down the graphics on this thing to get it to acceptably. Yeah. And that was true of the original Halo 2. And it's weird because Halo 2 runs on an old Xbox, which is the equivalent of it's a Pentium 3 processor. I want to say the thing is like 256 megs of RAM or something silly like that. Really old-fashioned NVIDIA graphics processor now. And obviously this thing runs fine on that. And you get it on this big honking PC and it really slows down. But, I scaled everything down so that it would run full speed. And, it's neat. Now, you can't play against people on the Xbox, which is what you want.
I thought that was the point of it.
No, there are certain games now coming out, and only a few this year, but there's a game out now called Shadowrun, which I also picked up. Shadowrun is really interesting because there's a version for the Xbox 360, there's a version for Windows. If you have both, like I did to test it, if you get an achievement in one, it reflects on the other. So in other words, you could get an achievement playing on the PC, turn off the PC, get on the Xbox 360, get another achievement.
Okay.
Yeah, they all, as long as you logged in with the same account, it all goes toward, there's only one Shadowrun entry. There's not 2 entries to the 2 different versions. But the other thing you can do is play against each other online. So I did this with my son locally. I haven't done this on the internet yet because Shadowrun is actually a complex game. It's a shooter like Halo, but there's magic and tech and all this stuff you can do.
Good.
It's pretty good. But we did it locally, so you can. They have computer controlled players. You do like a team death match. And I was on the Windows PC, and my son was on the Xbox 360. It worked seamlessly. It was virtually identical on both sides.
Wow!
And that's a neat little look at the future too. So, I don't know. I think the only problem is right now, games for Windows Live is not as pervasive on the PC as it is on the Xbox 360. And the only way you can access this stuff is to go into a compatible game. You can't access your stuff, externally to a game, which would be nice because you can do things like create a picture on the Xbox, do video chatting or download TV shows and movies and things like that. All that stuff isn't on Windows, so right now it's really just the basics.
Windows.
We'll get there.
So when they say Windows Live in this context, it's more like the Xbox Live.
Yeah.
And when
right.
they say Windows Live in the context of the web, so are they? I'm confused. Are they unrelated?
No, they're completely related, and it is confusing because obviously when Xbox Live was created, there was no notion of Windows Live, so they're sort of retrofitting things in. So Xbox Live came first. It was just a gaming service. Now there's some multimedia stuff going on there too. Obviously you can download movies and TV shows. Windows Live took over for what used to be MSN, and you have things like their Hotmail product. Windows Live Messenger, the instant messaging product, and so forth. So on the Windows side, you have this Windows Live thing, this set of services and products. They decided to combine all this into a sort of an Uber service that I think they're just calling Live now, all capital letters.
Live.
It's
Live from Redmond.
It's not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet.
It's almost live. Anyway,
I have high hopes for it. I mean, we've talked about this before. I just like the idea, but it does, and there's a lot of promise and a lot of cool little. It's kind of their labs too, really.
Yeah, right. It's kind of their Google, if you want to think about it that way. I mean, they maybe too often have many things very much like Google, but some of their stuff is very good. They ship that Windows Live Mail client, which is the replacement for Outlook Express and Windows Mail. And it's actually really good, and it integrates really nicely with.
So you would download that and use it on Vista or
Windows, Windows XP, I believe, Service Pack 2 and Vista.
And it replaces Vista Mail.
It does replace Vista Mail. So it's actually a better client. It works with webmail. It does RSS. It's nice looking. They've got this sort of Windows Live UI thing that's going on now. You can choose different color schemes and all that stuff.
Oh, that's neat.
But again, in the same vein, they need to. They're kind of hitting the basics, but they're not really integrating it. If I go into Windows Live Mail and I say I really like the black color scheme, I should get that same color scheme on any Windows Live service that I access. My Messenger should turn that color if I want it to.
Right.
When I go to Live Search, it should be black. Everything I do should be integrated like that, and they're not. And I think they'll get there, but
so right now it's just a kind of a tossed salad of different technologies. Really is, They don't integrate quite as nicely as they should.
Yeah, some do, some don't. Yeah.
Sounds like it's worth downloading the Mail program though.
If you're using Windows Mail for some reason, and God help you, or Outlook Express, and
really God help you then. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You need to get this. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
If you're just doing internet-based email, in other words, you have no reason for Outlook for whatever reason, or you don't have Outlook, this is something to look at. It's free. There are no ads. It's very attractive looking. It's very functional. It works very well. I like it a lot. I like it. And I've never really liked the Outlook Express stuff too much. But this one's nice, and this is the one they're going to push going forward. So this will be their mail client, for consumers and individuals going forward.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Windows Mail Live. I'm making a note to download that because I don't use Outlook particularly on. I like to look at the clients that my audience on the radio show, for instance, will be using, and that's they use Outlook Express, unfortunately, and so anything that makes that better is good.
Oh, jeez. I mean, we can't get people off of Outlook Express quickly enough.
It's just a nightmare. Now, people are, though, I have to say, even new users, basic users, and almost all young users are now using webmail.
Right.
They're using Yahoo Mail or Hotmail or Google Mail. They did update the Hotmail interface too.
They did, and
so
actually,
that's the same as the Windows Live interface now.
Actually, they're pretty similar. So if you're used to using Hotmail, the new version online,
right,
switching to this will be almost seamless because they're very, very similar.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And that's really the trend. As we said earlier, when we were talking about Jobs and his understanding that he's a software company as much as a hardware company, it really is moving that way, and that's thanks to the internet. I think that this isn't the end of applications on the desktop, not only looking like web-based applications, but maybe even being web-based applications.
Yeah, and actually, I don't believe that I've written this down anywhere yet. This is something that's been going through my head a lot lately, which is, with that in mind, if you look at traditional software companies like Microsoft, and you look at this new world of web-based applications, those traditional software companies are not doing a good job at all of addressing this, what is obviously a sea change in the way that people access, computer-based services, right? And companies like Google and
Google
maybe,
gets it. There's no question.
Google obviously gets it. Yeah.
Well, they don't sell
nice.
an operating system and they don't sell hardware, so that's the only way they can participate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When there's no legacy to worry about, moving to this new paradigm is much easier. And I just think it's a fascinating trend. I mean, you and I were talking earlier about a guy who was really excited about this virtualization software that's available now for the Mac. We can run Windows and Mac side by side, semi-seamlessly, and how exciting that was. And I just look at that and I think, okay, I understand why people on the Mac need that, but that's almost so passé because we're moving into this era now where that operating system may not matter anymore.
I've waited for this for a long time. This is, this is the way it should be. Nobody choose. Well, maybe the nerds did. We used to choose an operating system, but really, we're choosing applications. We're choosing to get something done. We're trying to, do something.
Yes,
that's why.
Right. I mean, as a tech enthusiast, and as a kid, I had various Commodore computers and an Amiga, and I had a 2GS and all kinds of different systems, but in the years before the internet, I know that I spent hours and hours and hours in front of a computer.
Right.
And I'm not joking when I tell you I have no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, because it was just a big old calculator.
Yeah, I mean,
what could you do?
It's funny. Computers are very useful on their own. But if you're not connected to the rest of the world, I mean, you're just kind of spinning your wheels.
That's
what
a really
are you doing?
Good point. What were we? We were playing games.
We were
doing
playing games.
Spreadsheets, I guess.
I have these memories of setting up Mandelbrot. What do you call those things?
The fractals. Yeah,
the fractal things overnight. This thing would run and then the picture would come out.
Pretty.
And you can generate those things. That's like a screensaver now.
You don't have to. It's true. I think maybe that the passion for tweaking computers comes from those days because there wasn't much else you could do. So you spent a lot of time making it work right, making it look different. Getting your desktop to look like something else.
Now I think it's more convenient. I mean, how you want to be able to go if you had to go in a computer cafe, if you were on a trip, or if you had a laptop.
You want to look like everybody else. Yeah.
Well, you can get in there and get your stuff because it's online.
Right.
I mean, maybe going away on a vacation, you want to check your email very quickly. If it's already online, who cares? You don't have to have your laptop with your email client on it. You can do that from anywhere.
So have you played much with Google Gears? Because that's kind of the point of it, I think, is to convert these desktop apps to web apps.
Well, I've played with it in the sense that it's available for Google Reader, which is their kind of like an RSS aggregator, a web-based service. It's a web page. And what Google Gears does is allow you to use these web-based applications like Gmail and Google Calendar and Google Reader. Eventually, all of those will be available offline as well as online because as I think it was one of the Google CEO or somebody who said, we discovered that a lot of our users actually aren't always online. Sometimes they have to get on a plane.
That's
or something.
Exactly right. That's the negative that keeps coming up for me is, well, what if you're on a plane or not online?
Right, because it's nice to be able to triage email or whatever. Regardless of where you are, maybe you're sitting in an airport, whatever it is. You don't have to even be on the plane. I mean,
right.
But so what they've done is they've created this technology that will allow themselves and others. They're open sourcing it, so people can extend it and work on it, make it better, apply it to their own applications. You can use these things like Gmail eventually offline. So you would navigate around the Gmail site. You would create new mails, answer emails, delete emails, label them, whatever you want to do. Obviously, nothing that you send would send unless you were online. But once you get back online, these things will all synchronize back up again.
Now, the impression
just like desktop.
The impression I got with Google Gears also is that it has an open API, so other developers could use the same technology for their applications.
Yeah, that's absolutely the point of it. And even Microsoft could use it. I mean, if this thing worked out, if this was the answer, and by the way, if this works, and I like I said, I downloaded it to look at it. You can download the little client, and then you can use Google Reader offline. And I actually do use Google Reader, so I was able to look at that, and I guess it works. I mean, Google Reader is very simple because all it's doing is downloading things and allowing you to read them. So it's sort of caching it. You don't. It's not like email where you reply or whatever. But you can move things around. You can organize it the way you want, and this thing will synchronize back up with the web when you're done. So that is fascinating. Yeah.
Well, that solves the problem and gives you best of both worlds. Do you have to write a desktop application? Like, would I have to write or Google have to write a Google Calendar application for the desktop, or does it somehow?
No, that's the point. The point is you would access it from the web. It
just saves it.
It's basically cached, I guess, is the way you would think of it. So
that's
in the
super
same way
slick.
your email is sitting there if you're using Outlook, even when you're offline, and you can sit there and reply to emails and read them and mark them as read and all that stuff. This is sort of a supposition here. This is what they're saying is they're going to do that to the web client for Gmail, for example. They specifically use that as an example, Google Calendar. They're going to look at, docs and spreadsheets. They've got a presentation app coming out as well. And if this works, if it works as advertised, sort of like Microsoft Surface, if it really comes, full circle,
the
that's
world
the future,
will be
right?
a new place.
Well, it will. I mean, that might be the final nail in the coffin of desktop applications of some types.
Right.
We'll see. I mean, it's going to be a slow process. Obviously, the Photoshops of the world, the video editors, video games, things like that. I mean, it will be more efficient for the foreseeable future for you to have a desktop application, for those things. But increasingly, I mean, for a lot of people, people who are not like us,
we don't need
people
high-end, super fast.
Well, the computer is a tool,
right? That
is not the reason the reason you're using it is not because it's a computer. It's because you need email in the web
to get stuff done. A lot of people say, I have to use Google spreadsheet is no good. I couldn't possibly use it. I have to use Excel. But, sure. I don't see people using, 95% of Excel doesn't get used. I mean, maybe there are a few things that you need that aren't in Google spreadsheet, but I think it has, there's a lot of very simple uses for a spreadsheet, most of the ones I do.
And that's 99% of the people out there.
That's most people, and it works fine.
Not about it. Yeah. I know that for me, personally, as a writer, I have to use Microsoft Word because there are certain features that are just in there. I literally can't even use something like WordPerfect. I mean, it has to be Word. Part of it is because I do a lot of work through the magazine, and we do, use the editing features to do revisions and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. But, as a writer, I need that. People who are not writers, which I think are most people, might not need that stuff. And maybe Google Docs or some web-based, service or whatever, or something much more lightweight and portable than Word would be fine for those people. And I think that's where we're heading. So it's interesting. I mean, this whole trend is very, very interesting to me.
Well, I'm installing Google Gears in Firefox right now.
Okay.
We'll see what it does for me.
Yeah. Well, what you'll notice is not much, right? Because it will just work. It's
yeah, I like it.
Well, assuming you use,
I do use Google Mail and I use Google Spreadsheets.
Well, but that stuff, it's not there yet. That's what I'm saying.
It's only there right now for the reader.
It's only there for readers. So that's what you'll have to test.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting you don't use Reader. Okay, so you just subscribe. You can subscribe to a couple of RSS
start using
feeds.
It. Yeah. Well, I use the Google front page, and I guess that's a portal to Google Reader.
I think. Yeah. So if this works, this is the game changer.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. And Surface.
Same thing. if it works. It's not a game. I think we all saw that one coming. I don't know that anyone saw this coming in this particular way.
Right. Paul Thurrott's blog is online. It's if you want to write a critique.
If you want to complain about my use of quoting the San Francisco Chronicle, please send me an email.
And has the Chronicle, by the way, been attacked in any way? No, I don't think so.
Who cares? I don't even know. I believe only I have been attacked for quoting them.
That's just you.
Accurately.
Paul has, by the way, 11,810 achievements, so he's really going places. You can find out more at internet-nexus.com. He'll be going pro any day now. He also runs the Supersite for Windows, which is a great resource, especially for Vista users, at winsupersite.com. And his new book is a must for Windows Vista users, Vista Secrets. Windows Vista Secrets available on Amazon. And just go to his website. Click that link there because you get a great price at internet-nexus.com. And we'll catch up with you. Actually, I don't know if it'll be next week because I'm going to be in Vancouver, but I'll try because I hate to miss shows like this. But we'll certainly catch up soon and find out what's going on in the wacky world of Windows. What did I call this? What did I call you? The
Whackmeister.
Whackmeister.
Which I'm adding to my business card as we speak.
Hey, thank you, Paul, and we'll talk again next time.